we will be talking about using photos and images to support communication of difficult experiences. And I'm Dr. Rebecca Gripper based in the University of Brighton. I'll be speaking about research purposes for that as part of the Big Picture, which is a collaboration between the University of Leeds, University of Brighton and Mind India, with partner organizations Nirman Rehabilitation Institute and Hope Foundation.
Mind India works on positive mental health and well-being, and we work basically on counseling, well-being, on different courses on counseling, and definitely we take up projects as we did with the Big Picture with University of Leeds. So when we are talking about photo images, I am going to speak a little more from the context of as an individual practitioner, as a counseling psychologist too. And also the group interactions that we have from Mind India, how we use photo images to basically help in emotional healing. Of course, we all know the advantages of photo, voice, and images. One is, of course, because it is non-verbal and it becomes much easier for us to communicate, and it cuts across all cultural and geographical barriers as well as on language and age. And it's more interesting because it is open to different interpretations and narratives. And since in my clinic also I have found out when I use it with the individuals, they find it very helpful because it is more experiential in nature, and this experiences varies from individual to individual. And more importantly, people feel safe to talk about it, and they feel that the therapy is more in their control when they are talking about it. So some of the techniques that I use, one of the very old techniques that we have all used as psychologists is the empty chair technique that I have used from Gestalt. The other one that I use is on imagery, guided imagery techniques to encourage clients to reduce anxiety and panic. And I think it has been very, very helpful during the COVID times to use this technique. And using a lot of solution-focused brief therapy in my work as a counseling psychologist, I use the miracle question, where it gives a lot of avenues to talk about and imagine what will happen to you and how you would like to, lay down your life and move ahead from there. So the question that I ask usually is that imagine a miracle happens overnight. When you wake up, how do you think your life will be like? And that helps them to get different interpretations for themselves. And a similar way, when we talk about in family therapy, family sculpting also helps us to give us an understanding on the dynamics of the different members of the family and how they want to resolve their own issues. Mind India has been working extensively in community well-being, and we have been using a lot of group activities for that. And the top left-hand corner is on psychology students. And most of the work that we have done is in the community level. So we have got different age groups and different educational backgrounds who have helped us in understanding how we can use emotional healing and well-being. We have worked with marginalized communities like the tea gardens. Assam is very famous for its tea gardens, and we have worked there with adolescent girls and boys. So if you look in the center also, the self-expressions that they gave with different faces and different emotions. The next one is on the problem tree of how they want to resolve their own issues. Coming to adult, we have also looked at how we can use life skills for adolescents as well as for adults. And body mapping has been one of the key ways to also understand about oneself. And along with that, we also found that when we talk about art-based therapy, we have tried using different techniques and different tools like music, dance, and mindfulness practice. And in the left-hand corner photograph, you will see that they are working and doing a technique of mindfulness practice in the tea gardens in communities with the adolescent boys and girls. And the latest one that we have, project that we have come up, and we have been working for the last 2.5 years now with the Big Picture, which is called the Voice of the Youth, Resistance and Recovery from Addiction.
So I'm going to talk specifically about ways in which we've used photographic methods and participatory poster making And this is with young people. There's two strands of the project. There's young people who are in recovery from substance addiction. So they've been free of substances for over a year, and they've worked with a rehabilitation facility for that. And there's other people, young people who, because they're in a high risk area, they are at risk of substance misuse, but they don't use substances. And we conducted Photovoice interviews with many of these youth. There's an example at the top of a photograph where it shows the array of pictures that people might bring to talk about their lived experiences of recovery and risk. And so they pick photos to convey their journey, right? And these might be photos that they've taken themselves or that they even find on the internet but think speak to them. And then participants are also offered the option to make a poster with the aim of communicating with the public. So you have an example here of a poster that a participant in recovery, so this is a 21-year-old man who's been in successful recovery from alcohol addiction. This is something that he's put together. And I think you can see an example of how powerful these materials are just straight from the get-go. This is a picture that he's selected, and he's put a quote from his interview, which is, "My parents have given everything they could, but they suffered because of my addiction, yet they continued to support and motivate me. I've relieved myself from addiction because of their love and support. They knew I was critically ill, but not hopelessly bad." I don't know if you can see at the top, there's something about how people blame the family as well as the addict. And this really speaks to the ability to use visual methods to communicate directly, or mostly directly, between a participant and somebody else. Whether that's a policymaker or as part of an awareness campaign. It gives us insight into some really powerful things like stigma, how he believes other people see him, and what he thinks is important for his recovery, which in this case is the motivation and support of his family, showing us that family is really crucial here. So in general, we might think, why do we want to use visual methods? Well, firstly, I think it shows that they're very empowering. They allow a lot of choices from participants to say what they think is important to them, what their version of a narrative is, what they consider to be important turning points in their journeys. What they want to disclose and not disclose. This can help us overcome barriers in age and language use. People don't have to be particularly confident speakers. They don't have to be very highly educated to create very sophisticated messages. And these materials stand on their own, which is very important as well. It helps us to gain new knowledge. So if you're a researcher, that is one of the things you want to do really, is to gain new understanding. And for us in this project, what this has allowed us to do is understand how people in recovery think others view them, and as stigma, or what may look like stigma, is so important for mental distress and addiction and combating these things. That's very, very important to know. It allows people to discuss experiences that are really hard to put into words, like the lived experience of being in addiction, which is very chaotic. It's very much about the body. It's very hard to put into words, and this allows people to do that. And people speak about the process as being very rewarding, that the creativity is very important to them, that they form relationships with others, but also with themselves, and that it may be the first time that they've been able to tell their own story, which is so important to them. I'd like to give you an example. There's him with his peers that he uses substances with, and there's a sense of him really wanting to belong with these people, and that's how he speaks about that in his interview, of really wanting to belong. And then in the next picture, this is a picture he actually selected just from a Google search. It's a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, and the caption is, "Give yourself time." So this idea that unfolding over a life, there is this transformation that can happen. And when you have these images, you may consider them on their own and just analyze them on their own, or you may analyze the text alongside them. He says, "I see this as valuable time. I'm not just passing time with these things like eating, sleeping, keeping away from substances. It's not, and then it's done. It's not like this. But the new things, the things that went away, so the things that fell apart when he was young and in addiction, I have to learn those things too. I have to learn how to build a relationship with someone, how to talk with them. And what that tells us is that actually just getting back into a daily routine and a rhythm and learning to see time in this way is essential to recovery in his experience. And that's something that the photographs enable him to say without saying, and enable us to infer and pick up from his account. So in conclusion, using photo images both therapeutically and in research purposes can provide insight into experience.
I think, when we talk about the healing process, it is individual as well as collective, and it always helps to build relationship between people, and not only with the people, but also a community as a whole. So we have a very holistic and collective way of looking at it, and photo images has helped us to do so, and the big picture has definitely shown us the way to go about it. The participants who were with us, they definitely expressed that it was healing for them. So I think at the end, we would like to say that collectively we can do a lot of work while going on and not saying anything much, but yet saying a lot more. So a picture paints 1,000 words.